The first problem with this approach is that investment in Alberta is not down because our taxes or any other policies of the government. They're down because of low oil prices. The second, and actually much bigger problem with Kenney's plan to cut taxes for corporations is that these plans don't work. In fact, they will shrink the economy, not grow it. How do we know this? Well, we know this because Kenney's handouts to the rich approach has been tried before. Many, many, many times. Just look south of the border. It was tried by conservatives in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Wisconsin, in Kentucky, and literally dozens of other American states, and it's what Donald Trump is doing at the national level right now. Literally billions and billions of public dollars have been shoveled at corporations by right-wing governments over the past decades, and you know what those corporations have done with that money? Exactly. Instead of investing in their businesses and creating jobs, they've taken the money and pocketed it for themselves in the form of higher executive compensation and share buybacks that artificially boost the price of the stocks that they own. So they use public money, our money, to line their own pockets. But it gets worse. While corporate tax cuts don't create jobs and investment, what they do result in is less revenue for governments to pay for things that ordinary citizens, people like us, the things that we rely on, like education, healthcare, and other important public services. So CEOs get fatter paychecks and a bigger bottom line for themselves personally, while we get underfunded services, overcrowded classrooms, crumbling roads, and growing public debt, which then is used as an excuse for further and deeper cuts. Conservatives call their approach trickle-down economics, because the benefits of giving handouts to the rich are supposed to trickle down to everyone else. But what their approach should really be called is snake oil economics, because it's a false cure that makes the economy sicker, not healthier. And it only enriches the hucksters who are selling it. Jason Kenney is one of those hucksters selling snake oil, and in this election, we need to tell him that we will not swallow it. So that brings me to the second reason why Jason Kenney would be bad for the Alberta economy. And it actually has to do with the oil and gas sector. As we all know, the oil and gas sector is the main driver of our economy in this province, and many people are feeling anxious about that sector's future. And I'm here to say today that that anxiety is actually justified. It's justified because what we're experiencing in Alberta today is not just another boom and bust cycle like we've become accustomed to. Instead, what we're witnessing is nothing short of a fundamental transformation of the global oil and gas economy. This transformation starts with the fracking boom south of the border in the United States that has completely upset the global supply-demand balance for oil, and which has turned our biggest customer, the United States, into our biggest competitor. But it doesn't stop there. It continues with the wave of automation that is eliminating jobs in the oil patch, allowing companies to produce more oil with fewer people, and it culminates in the move that we're seeing right now away from fossil fuels, which is gaining steam across the world. Now, this won't happen next week or even next year, but sooner rather than later, the world is going to want less of what we're selling, and it's already putting downward pressure on prices for what we sell. And as prices go down, investment goes down. That's what we're up against right now. These are irrevocable, global, and foundational changes beyond the control of any Alberta politician or indeed any Canadian politician. But Jason Kenney, instead of acknowledging the change, he denies it. He denies that change is happening, and as a result, he will leave our economy completely exposed and completely unprepared when that change runs over us. The Notley government, on the other hand, is responding to the changing landscape by doing what we in the labor movement have been suggesting. They're investing in diversification so that we don't have all of our eggs in one economic basket. And they're investing in things like infrastructure, education, public services, so our citizens and our businesses can become more resilient in the face of this changing economy. That's what we need right now. The bottom line is that if you don't prepare for a changing economy and if you deny change, then I can't even read my own notes here. The bottom line is that if you don't prepare for a changing economy by preparing for change, that's how you do it. Jason Kenney has a plan for the past that no longer exists, whereas Rachel Notley has a plan for the future that's coming at us fast. And there's an analogy that I like to share in relation to this change that's affecting our economy right now. And it's based on a quote from a famous hockey player, and I know I'm here in Calgary, so this may not go down well, but Wayne Gretzky was famous for saying, Wayne Gretzky, yeah, we got the Edmonton crown at the back. And yes, it's not been that long since we won a Stanley Cup. But Wayne Gretzky said in his heyday that you don't win games by skating to where the puck was, you win games by skating to where the puck will be. And what we have in Alberta right now is a government that is skating to where the puck will be. Jason Kenney is a guy who is skating fast and furiously to where the puck used to be. And just to reiterate how important the idea of moving forward is, if you don't want to take it from me, take it from the CEOs and leaders of Alberta's oil sands companies themselves. I don't usually quote them, but just yesterday at a big conference down in Houston, the vice president of Husky and the incoming CEO of Suncor, which is our biggest oil company, they said, this is a quote, "We're in a very good place, a much better place than we were 4 years ago, thanks in large part to the Notley government's policies aimed at helping oil companies adapt to a changing global oil and gas landscape." So that brings me to the third and final reason why Jason Kenney would be bad for the Alberta economy. And it actually has to do with workers' rights. Now, it's not often that workers' rights are framed this way, but it's important for us as working people to recognize that workers' rights are an economic issue. They're an economic issue because 60% of our economy is driven by consumer spending. And if wages and benefits are suppressed, as they have been south of the border by hostile right-to-work legislation, if wages are suppressed, then the economy suffers. So if governments are concerned about the economy, they need to enhance, not erode workers' rights. They need to enhance, not erode worker bargaining power to make sure that we get a fair share of that economic pie that we work so hard to create. So when we do that, when we give workers real power to get their fair share of the pie, that's not just good for the workers and their families, it's good for the whole economy because we're the ones who drive the economy. You've heard this phrase about the job creators in the economy. And when people use that phrase, they're not talking, who they're talking about? They're talking about the captains of industry and CEOs. But if 60% of our economy is driven by consumer spending, you know who the real job creators are? You! So, but Jason Kenney, he would go in the opposite direction of what's needed. If elected, he's promised that this summer would be what he describes as the summer of repeal. He would freeze the minimum wage and reduce it for young workers and disabled workers. He would go after public sector workers, cutting their jobs and cutting their salaries. He would tear up all the workplace laws passed by the NDP over the last 3 years, laws that finally gave Alberta workers the same kind of protections in the workplace that other Canadians have enjoyed for generations. And perhaps most significantly, he would go after unions. Kenney has explicitly said that he wants to bring American-style anti-worker laws and anti-union laws to Alberta. As we've seen, these laws make it harder for workers to join unions and to bargain collectively. These are laws that deliberately hamstring unions, and they're designed to make it harder for our unions to advocate on behalf of our members, both in the workplace and on the political stage. Now, employers who Jason Kenney really serves, they love these laws because they suppress the power of workers and enhance the power of employers. But by doing this, they also suppress wages and benefits and dramatically increase the income and wealth inequality in our society. These are things that suppress, not enhance consumer spending, and they are things that will shrink rather than grow our economy. It is for this reason, and for the other reasons I've just mentioned, that Jason Kenney's anti-worker policies need to be seen as anti-economy policies. So just to wrap up then, I've given you 3 reasons why Jason Kenney is bad for the economy, but I want you to put that in contrast to what we have with the New Democrat government right now. And it has already been mentioned that the New Democrats made history in this province not only by winning election as the first majority NDP government, but also having a caucus that is 50% women. What you may not know is that that caucus is also 50% union. Okay, so 50% of the NDP caucus are people who, before they are elected, sat in rooms like this and participated in locals like yours. So on that magical day in May of 2015, we didn't just elect Alberta's first NDP government, we also elected the most worker-friendly government, certainly that this province has ever seen, but perhaps the whole country. We elected union presidents, we elected shop stewards, we elected business agents and union staff, we elected Labour Council presidents. 3 members of the Alberta Federation of Labour Council were elected and now sit as members of the legislature. And the result is that when you elect workers to represent workers, you get policies from government that respect workers. And that has made all the difference. So on those 3 measures that I just talked about, on one hand, we have a government that understands that we need fair taxation to pay for quality public services, and those quality public services drive our economy forward, versus an opposition party that talks about the need to give tax breaks to their rich friends. We also have a government that is planning to deal with changes in the oil and gas economy by diversifying, by helping companies to reduce emissions so that we can be competitive in an increasingly carbon-constrained world, versus an opposition party that pretends that we can go back to the past and has no plan for adapting to change. And finally, we have a government that, because they are workers, understands that supporting workers is not just good for individuals and their families, but also good for the economy. And we compare that to an opposition party that is hell-bent on bringing American-style labor laws to Canada. So for us in the labor movement, the contrast and the choice is clear. We can either go forward with the party that understands us and embraces our priorities, or we can go backward and turn into a Virginia North by electing a party that doesn't believe in any of the things that we hold dear. So I hope this has helped you, because I know there are a lot of people who disagree with Jason Kenney and the UCP on many issues, but they're thinking about holding their nose and voting for this party anyway because of the economy. But now that I've given you some of this new perspective, I'm hoping that you don't have to hold your nose and vote for Jason Kenney because of the economy, and that instead you can do what your heart is telling you to do, and that is to vote for a worker-friendly, progressive government, not just because they're progressive and worker-friendly, but because a worker-friendly and progressive government is actually the best government for our economy at this moment in Alberta right now. So I'm just going to wrap up by asking the tech to throw up a slide. As you know, we were very involved in laying the groundwork for the election, the labor movement. When I say we, I'm talking about you. So all the unions under the umbrella of the Federation of Labor, we worked really hard 4 years ago to help the new Monopoly government get elected. And we're doing the same right now. And one of the things that we've done is launched a new campaign called Next Alberta. And it's about making sure that the next Alberta is a progressive Alberta, that the next Alberta is not a UCP Alberta, and that the next Alberta is actually a Notley NDP Alberta. And so what we want to do through this campaign is to identify all the people who share our values and priorities and mobilize them during the campaign to help out with New Democrat campaigns at the constituency level, and then also mobilize them on election day to make sure that Rachel gets over the top. So we want to give you tools to help in those conversations that you might have with your friends and family about the things that you've heard from me and from others today about the importance of this election. And so we've got a whole bunch of online tools about all the things I talked about the truth about corporate taxes, the truth about the attack on workers' rights, the truth about what's happening in oil and gas, and how the New Democrats actually have a better plan for the future of oil and gas than the UCP, all of these things. So if you're interested, please go to our site. We set up a page for you. It's called www.itsyouralberta.ca. Okay, go there, hit I'm in, and give us your contact information, and then we will give you information that about the election from a Labour perspective as it develops, and we're hoping that you will share this information on your social media platforms with your friends and colleagues. That's the way we get, it's never easy for working people. When we win at the bargaining table, and when we win in the community, and we win on the in the political arena, it's because we do this kind of work of organizing on the ground, talking to each other. But together, as we see today, and as we sit at our bargaining tables, when we work together, we can make impossible things happen. We did it 4 years ago. We're going to do it again in 4 weeks. So thanks very much for this opportunity, and good luck with the rest of your conference.